I'm going to talk about the motor vessel Leutsboot Castor, once called Redeemer, and her connection with our mission to the Philippines. Alistair should have been here, but he's missed the bus. I first met Alistair in 2002. He was a young man then, just 70 years old, but now he's nearly 80, and what you might call an old sea dog. This was soon after our return from our mission to the Philippines in December 2001. Gordon Smith and I had been to the Philippines working in the prison cities, and in particular New Bilibid Maximum Security Prison. My brother Michael was an inmate who'd been sent there in 1996 to prison and was serving a 16-year sentence. We had gone to bring help and relief to him in October 2001. On my return to England, I met Alistair, who was a friend of Gordon, and he had been connected with ships and knew all about those things that I didn't. And he told me about Redeemer. I became interested in the ship because it sounded an ideal answer to our needs and could be used to further our mission work. It was at that time in Holland and could be brought to Portsmouth and put into service. It was 46 metres long and a cabin capacity of 40. It was a beautiful ship built in the 50s, 1950, and was one of 7. It was a coaster, and it is believed to have been reserved for the Dutch royal family during the Cold War. Alistair informed me of the Redeemer's history and his connection with it. He told me of his 2 friends, Dennis Collins and Maurice Bitty. Dennis Collins was the captain of a ship called Logos at the time, whilst Maurice was its chief officer. It was in 1979 and the Vietnamese were in serious trouble, and many boat people had to be rescued. The communists were persecuting them and they were escaping in their boats. Now the Logos stumbled across these boat people in the South China Sea. They had nowhere to go and their boats were being destroyed by sea pirates. There was about 100 or so. Nobody wanted to help these people, but these men did, and got into international trouble. They had no passports, no visas, you can imagine, and no one was prepared to help them. The pirates had robbed and killed their victims, some of them, and cast them into the sea and raped some of their women. This sparked off the idea in Maurice Bitty to purchase his own ship to do Christian work. It was then that he purchased the Castor, which was one of 7 built in 1950. Then he renamed her Redeemer. The ship set off to the South China Seas, but ended up in Malta and remained there till 1997 doing various mission work. Alistair, meanwhile, having worked on various ships, YWAM ships, Mercer ships, one called Anastasis and the other called Good Samaritan, was then asked if he would take the Redeemer or look after the Redeemer for a period and then take it to Falmouth where it had been sold and then on to Holland in Urk in Holland. It was the knowledge of this ship and its history that had caught my attention, and it sounded ideal for our use, the purpose of which I will tell you about in a moment. So, with Alistair's help, we went off to Holland to see the ship. At this stage, you can watch video 1, but don't do it now because it's about 20 minutes long. Look at it afterwards. Listen to the rest of this video. Go back. There is a playlist at the end here. You can select all the videos that I've put up. There's about 20 or 30. Well, our mission work. We were involved in dealing with those who had been in crime and been criminals in the past. Killers, murderers, rapists, and some had been in jail for 20 years and they had to be released. Now, having been like that for 20 years, being released in the Philippines, without getting work, the natural inclination would be to revert back to crime. The only way to prevent that would be to educate such men, give them tools to get back into business. The problem is, though, what we found out was that if you educate a car thief, then with his education he'll steal an aircraft and then fly it into Twin Towers And it happened, of course. But if you educate a man who's turned around, he has skills and abilities that could be put to good use and become a valuable asset to society. And we could bring hard evidence to demonstrate this fact to you. And this was our mission, to help people who have been rehabilitated and help them get back into society. The reason why we went to the Philippines was because my brother Michael, although he'd been sent to jail, and I was shocked at the knowledge of his crime, I don't wish to be pharisaical, but I was not always a good lad, good boy. I've broken the law in the past, but I was ashamed of his arrest initially. But I'll talk about that later. However, when Gordon and I went to the jail, having learned about Michael's experience becoming a Christian, it was during that mission that Gordon and I were overwhelmed with the good work being done by religious volunteers in helping and assisting criminals who were being converted from crime to Christ. On our first mission, we went down from New Bilibid Prison down to Angeles City Jail and then Olongapo District Jail in Barreto. And on that occasion, Trojan Horse International, because that's what our mission name was or is, we appointed a young pastor, Monaco Karani, to the position of mission worker or outreach worker. See his video number 2, Angeles City Jail, Monaco Karani. Now, New Bilibid Prison is the largest prison in Asia's Far East, and it houses over 23,000 inmates, or it did at the time, in 3 compounds: the maximum, the medium and the minimum compounds. Now Michael was in the maximum security compound, which housed over 13,000 inmates. It also contains death row, in which there are, at that time, 1,200 men due to die by lethal injection. There's the death chamber. There's a guard post, and there's the typical guard with an M16 rifle. Now, Sonny Wilson was an Englishman, the first Englishman to be sentenced to death in the Philippines in 1996 for a crime he didn't do. He was set up for this crime, and it was all to do with money and jealousy. Anyway, to cap it all, when Sonny Wilson was released in December 1999, he came to see me at my home because he knew Michael, and Michael gave him my address. And he came to tell me of Michael's plight, and taught me and showed me that Michael's crime, what he'd been charged with, that he wasn't guilty of, and he was fighting his appeal. But Sonny Wilson has his own story, and there's a full video that was aired on British TV. There it is, video number 3. Go and watch it. It's called Sentenced to Death, Sonny Wilson. YouTube video 3, Sentenced to Death, Sonny Wilson. Now, when Sonny came to me, I'd learned of Michael's conversion from crime to Christ, and Michael himself, in 1998, had actually come to an end of himself. And he was losing his teeth, he's lost his weight, he was terrified, he was depressed, he's afraid of dying, he didn't want to die, he was in agony. Anyway, he read a book that Sonny Wilson had given him, Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis. And Michael, through reading that book, was convinced that Jesus was the Christ, the Son of the living God. And like me, years earlier, he searched the scriptures, read various Christian books and learned the gospel himself. Now, there were many Christians and religious groups in the prison. Lucas Dangatton was one of them. He was a former robbery with violence. He'd been sent to jail, came out of jail in 1985, went back to the prison as a religious volunteer in 1990. Now, Michael's conversion is told by himself. He recorded it on audio tape. Here it is, I've put it on YouTube, video 4. Watch it, Michael's testimony. Now, Michael was baptised as a believer in the prison by Lucas P. Dangatton. There he is, in an oil drum. And it was knowledge of this that moved Gordon and I to go on that mission to the Philippines, and that's why I wrote my story and published my book, Converted on LSD Trip, on the 11th of February 2001, which is exactly 30 years to the day to that story appearing on the news headlines in Buck's paper, in the Buck's paper. Anyway, there we are. My book was published. Gordon got news of the book being published. He contacted me after 20 years, and we decided there then to go to the Philippines to help Michael. And at that time, I had this knowledge, or this scriptural verse come to me, to cast your net on the other side of the ship. And scripture says, Peter, in response to this words of Jesus, was that, and he was astonished, and they that were with him, at the draught of fishes that were caught. And I read into this verse, it was almost like this was saying, you'd worked in England as teaching the way of God since your conversion. Now go and cast your net the other side of the world, you'll be surprised at the draught of fishes to be caught. So, there it goes. And then it appeared in the newspaper, there's our mission to see Michael. I pray, can I help my criminal brother? And there it is, newspaper in Portsmouth. Right, we've spoken about Michael's baptism. Lucas P. Gatton has his own profile in the book, Trojan Warriors, which we've written. You can go and watch that. Go to the website, the reference is in the book, there we are. Now, these men in the jail were helping themselves, like self-help groups. And they were teaching skills like they're teaching the gospel, paralegal skills, communication skills and education, all tools that people that have been inside need when they get on the out. And we had hoped to train some of these men out to go back to their own cities and towns to teach the gospel and tell them all what the Lord had done for them. There's William Pollock. He was one of the men that was sent. He was in jail for 14 years. His testimony is number 62 in our book, Trojan Warriors. He went back to his own city in Baguio City Jail and Benguet Jail teaching the gospel. We funded him till January 2003 with 6,600 pesos a month, and he did a very good job, and he's founded 2 churches since then and a theological institute. And go and watch that video number 8, William Pollock, our first mission sent. We sent him, a mission officer from Trojan Horse. There's some of the men in New Billerby prison, the teachers, and there's an aerial view of the prison. 12 hectares. In that 12-hectare area, it's a former concentration camp used by the Japanese in the Second World War. There are Catholics, born-agains, evangelical, Baptist, Seventh-day Adventists, you name it, they're all there. Michael, like me, when I was age of 20, once he'd become a Christian, he'd read the Bible himself, read lots of Christians, and learned the gospel, without the gloss of all the stupid religious stuff that goes on today. Now, I would be very sceptical at somebody telling me a story like this, but the fact is it's true, it's real. Okay, now, when Gordon and I were so aware, and we went to see the Undersecretary of Justice in the Philippines, and we said, look, we want to establish and set up a teacher training college in the jail. Lucas was running it with Michael and so on, the other inmates, and the Undersecretary of Justice said, yes, that's fine. We asked to bring other inmates from the medium security compound into the maximum security compound so we could teach them the gospel, the way of reformation, to help these men rehabilitate, and that's what it was all about. We went to see the director. We actually went to see the prison director and his staff, see video 9, and we prayed with the director and his staff, and you can hear the prayer, and that prayer, we believe God has answered our prayer. You read it, it's remarkable what took place. As a result of that, we went and asked 100 men in that jail. Michael and I requested 100 men write their testimonies of conversion from crime to Christ, and that's what we did, and published it in our book called Trojan Warriors. So we did this the next year. When we returned to England, and I met Alistair helped me compile these testimonies. They were being sent backwards and forwards by the internet and by post by Lucas Gatton. The front cover of the book designed by artists in the prison, and we together put this good book together and published it. Now, point is, it's all about not going back into trouble and being converted, and it works. I mean, we know from experience, we're talking reality, right? Michael had turned from crime to Christ. Like many of the men in this jail, William Pollock had too, so had Lucas Gatton, and I had 30 years previous to that. So we'd all experienced what we call the transforming work of God in converting from crime to Christ. And we were prepared to do this work. We were prepared to help this work, this kind of Christian work, both in the Philippines and the UK.
Now,
Go to our website to view the playlist and watch the listed videos at your leisure. www.trojanhorseinternational.com